Lastly, we'll be going through how to create an MCP client. Within the example code, we have our MCP client here, and our language model is actually defined on the MCP client. The language model should not be defined on the server unless you're just using it for in-house. But typically, when you are creating MCP servers, you will be utilizing the client's LLMs instead of your own. So within this client, we will be creating many things, but you could just copy the code that's created here to do it in your own projects if you'd like to. So within here, we have a class that will basically connect to our servers, and we can define our servers through here. So we will add the server called recipes. Using this port, I've also changed within here. We're going to be now using the server sent events instead of standard IO, just to prove of how server sent events work. Within our connection manager, this will be managing all the connections, but really what we're looking at is that it's going to have a list of server connections. Within these servers connections, we will have a session. This is going to basically be how we're talking to the server itself. This is the channel that is being created to communicate messages. We'll be running the session through this command right here. We're just going to be assigning the session to the class itself, but we want to yield the session because if we return it, this entire thing would close and the connection wouldn't be open anymore. This would be stale. So within here, we have the ability to do list tools, list resources, and list prompts. So within here, we're going to be using the same session instance. We'll be using the list tools from client session that's defined here, and we'll be returning the list of tools. Same thing for the resources and prompts. To call the tool itself, we'll be using the same server session, or if this needs to create a new server session, it would just run the session again, create it. So like see here, if S is none, there's no server, just rerun it and run the tool again. And we'll be using the call tools with the tool name that we're going to be using and the parameters. Same thing with the list for the prompts. We'll be calling list prompts with parameters. Sorry, call parameters. Sorry. Yeah, so get prompt, prompt name, and the parameters here. And same thing with the resources. From there, we can connect to our MCP servers, define our LLM chat model that we're going to be using. We have an agent here, and this agent will be what's responsible for selecting what tools that we're going to be using and also making the call to the MCP server itself. So within here, we have the connection manager, which handles all of our MCP servers, the LLM that we're going to be using, and we're going to start with a message that the LLM will be using at the start of its history. This messages here will also allow us to have a history of the LLM, so you can ask it multiple things that will be added on top of each other. So we just have role system, you're a helpful assistant, and some additional things for LLM call for tool calls. So we're gonna add message, a list of messages. This is gonna be a list of strings and strings. This would just be like this. So we're gonna have a list of messages that have a role and a content inside of it. We can execute code. So starting off, we'll have a task. So this is whatever the user's asking. We'll have a max iteration, so I'll explain in a bit. But with our connection manager, we're going to list out all of our tools. Our tool is going to be defined here. We're going to do some changes to the tools itself. In particular, I don't really know what this is. I had an LLM generate this for me as well. And then with LLM, if we're going to be using the chat Olama here, it also has this function called bind tools. You can pass your tools into here, and the LLM will now have context of these tools that it can use. Then we're just going to say like, hey, add to the messages, the user asks to do this thing. Now, with max iterations, what we're going to do is that we're going to basically call this LLM 10 times or less. With our first iteration, we're going to ask the LLM to find the appropriate tool for our use. And if there's no tool, then probably we're done with what we're doing. So we just append the message. If there's no tools that we can use that it thinks are suitable, or like if the task is completed, it will just exit the call. But if there is a tool that the LLM wants us to use, we'll grab the tool name, grab the parameters that it's specified, and then call the tool. Once the tool call is done from the MCP server, we're going to just add the result of that tool to our list of messages. We'll go through this again. We'll check again, see if like whatever we've just completed has satisfied the request. If it has, then we'll basically just return it. If it hasn't, it would do another tool call up to 10 times. And then here we have CLI chat. This is just our user interface that we'll be using. It's tuned to specifically this application. It's going to be using a prompt session. This is like a way to do, it's kind of like a Python input, but a lot more advanced per se. There's different things you can do with it. But it's going to take in the agent and the connection manager. Once we run it, we're going to get all the recipes from the list of recipes. And what this allows us to do, if you look in the bottom right corner here, if we type the @ symbol, we get a list of all of our recipes here. So instead of having the user type out the entire recipe, you can just use that. So banana smoothie shake, if we wanted to say add an instruction to use a straw. What this is going to do is that it's going to call, because I've defined it in here. Sorry. Once a user has inputted something into the session, it's going to take that input, it's going to process the input. If they've used a resources, which is like defined as the @ symbol, it's going to take that resource, and then for every resource it's going to use, it's going to call the resource itself. For docs, recipes, and resource, it's going to give like our list resource here. So if we go back to tools, actually, no, sorry, it was resources. It'll call this resource instance and get us the contents of that resource. And it's going to return a message that the user has basically said like, hey, LLM, the user is referencing this thing, by the way. And we can do the same thing for prompts as well. So within the process input, we have parse prompts, which is defined by the slash symbol. If the slash symbol is used, we're going to call the prompt with the arguments that they have passed in through the prompt and say, hey, the user has used this prompt, so the role is the user, and or like message role, whatever it's going to use. In case it's going to be user, we're going to paste the content of it, and this is effectively what's going to look like. So running this entire thing, we can, as our previous thing we've shown, we just asked it to add a straw at the very end. So we go to banana smoothie shake, and look here, use a straw for easy drinking experience that we just added. So let's just add another thing. So like say at smoothie milkshake, use instruction to use a chilled glass. So yeah, use a chill glass. we've added there just through our font area right there. And we can also use prompts here. So we have the create recipe prompt. We can press tab to complete that. And then we can define the name. So let's say donut. The name cuisine. Create a recipe for a sprinkle donut. Run. I'm going to create a new sprinkle donut recipe, just like that. So, sorry. All of this is going to be ran through the through asynchronously because we're going to be communicating with the server. So when you create this, you want to use the asynco.run to run this instance. Uh, and it's going to use it to connect to all of our servers here and also run our chat tool. And that will be it for the MCP client.